It's a new year, a new season, but the same great show with even better conversations to come. So get ready for a hot season as 2021 promises to be even more exciting as we gear up for another election season. Welcome to On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer, and Happy New Year to all of you. Although elections aren't expected to be called until mid-2022, there are signs that the campaign is off and running, albeit unofficial at this point. Tonight on The Record, we begin this season's conversation on political legacy with a guest who has lived her entire life in and around politics in some way. Don't move. Our conversation begins on the other side of this break. The project really pays itself back.
Correct.
They set up
at the conference, the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV. Welcome back. You're watching On the Record. We're so glad to have you join us. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer, and tonight we take a look at a political legacy. Even though more than a year away, the political landscape is already taking shape. Potential candidates are declaring their candidacies and have taken to the political campaign trail. One such potential is my guest tonight. Her family history alone can take up more than the allotted time for this show. She is definitely no stranger to politics and the way it is ran, and is truly a part of a political legacy. She's the last child of the father of our nation, first Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Lyndon Pindling, and former Governor General Dame Marguerite Pindling. My guest for tonight is none other than Monique Pindling. Monique, welcome to On the Record.
Thank you, Jerome. Nice to be here.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, too.
So, this is our first show for season 5, and we're happy to have you. We wanted to have a show that was really going to have an impact and speak to where we think we're headed over the next year. We can't ignore things like COVID-19 and the economy, but we know, even from last season, that the political landscape has heated up. And so we know, in conversations what your aspirations are, and so we thought it was a good idea to start with you. But let's we're going to start out with letting people know a little bit about you. Let's first begin by sharing what it is like and what it was like to grow up as a Pindling.
We're always asked that question. Our friends actually know better or know more, but you mightn't believe me, but honestly, very typical. I grew up, I remember doing regular kid stuff, riding my chopper bicycle or roller skates at the time, playing hopscotch in the yard or shooting marbles in the hallway of our house. My parents, both of them really were very strict and very old school. So my mom, I couldn't do sleepovers or go to friends' house. They could come to my house, but I wasn't allowed to go there. Mommy was of that mindset, keeping company wasn't good. And since I grew up with my two cousins, Kelly and Abdul, she felt that was enough company. We could keep each other company and we could play with one another. I have a story to tell you how strict they were or how we had rules in our house. I remember my prom. I graduated from Queens College, and here I was getting dressed, ready to go, or just before, and I said, okay, Mommy, my date has to pick me up. And she says, no date is coming here. You have to go there. He will meet you there. And that's where your night is going to begin. On top of that, my curfew was 10 p.m.
Who has a prom curfew at 10 p.m.?
when you had Marguerite Pindling as a mother, my dear, your curfew was what it was, and you wasn't woman enough to go past that 10 p.m. I didn't grow up, or I don't remember growing up much with Michelle, Obie, and Leslie. I came 5 years after Michelle and 9 years after Obie. So our time together, very vague. Um, my mom used to tell me I was born free since I was born in 67. So our lives were very different. When I grew up, I don't even remember my parents that much because they were always in and out. But I just know that I did normal things. I did regular things that most kids did. There were rules, but the rules were about how we were to behave as a family and how we were behaved as children. Daddy had rituals that we had to adhere to. Like after Sunday lunch, we had to take a nap in the afternoon. We had to go to sleep and we had to sleep for at least 2 hours. We took cod liver oil liquid every single day. We had to take a teaspoon of that every day. We had to drink honey and milk, swallow a bit of aloe every day. And he always felt that that was a way, we wouldn't get sick, we wouldn't get colds, and that would help us grow strong. He would take us with him when he went jogging on Goodman's Bay, walk the beach and swim. And don't ask me why, but he insisted on us brushing our teeth with sand.
With what?
With sand. Yeah, so later in the day, while you're eating lunch, you go crunch, crunch, you were eating bits of sand all the day, but that was his rules and that's what we had to do. I know from the outside looking in, for some might seem as if I'm playing it down, but simply that was just our life. It was normal as far as we were concerned. They weren't home a lot, but that's why he took us to Andros, or took us where he was going so that we would always be with him at some point. We knew what our roles were. We knew how to behave. We knew how to act. He insisted upon us being regular. He insisted upon us just being us. And he always used to tell us, now, I am prime minister and y'all are not. And nobody from Obie straight down never could act as if we were special. We could never use his name. We could never go out, and he insisted upon it, and that's how we just lived our lives.
Well, it's interesting you would say that. You're from a family, there's only one set of Pindlings in the country that that people would know of. But so immediately when your name is called, people would make that association. Do you think you ever benefited in any way from it, or do you feel that there were times that you may have suffered as a result of it, or because politics in the country being what it is, people are going to react. So did growing up and even later on in life, were things different for you, do you think, because of that?
When I was both, to answer your question, simply yes, both. It was, you had pros and you had cons. I think when I was younger, it was fun. I was excited because I remember driving with Daddy. If we were going out or coming from a function, because back then he dragged us to everything. We had to go out as a family unit and he insisted upon it. So, even though we go and we get in trouble or pinched if we're moving around or something like that, or fall asleep at a function, he still insisted on us going. But for me, younger, it was fun because when we were in the car, the motorcyclists used to be, speeding along the side of the car and we'd be driving fast down the road. And so I used to be so excited because the police officer used to be coming. To me, that was exciting. To me, that was fun. I didn't know why it was happening. I don't know what was going on, but that was fun. Later on, I think when we got older and we understood what he was doing, then you realize the negative side of it. The restrictions in our lives, of what we could do, where we couldn't go, who we could be with, the attacks on him, that they would end up, using whatever we did or said to get to him. So it got a little difficult. It was ugly and it was hard. But the one good thing I think with my family was that my mom made sure that our family unit was just that it was strong, that we were united, and she made that home a safe home environment, a sanctuary, not just for us, but for him. And when he came home, he never brought his work or his stress or whatever happened home. And so that's why I say it was normal in that respect. But yes, when we got older, it was harder because of all of the backlash. Yes.
You were the last child, the baby. You said outright that mom and dad weren't at home a lot. They were always busy. But do you think your relationship with him has impacted the decision that you've made now to enter into politics?
Um, that's a funny question because, Daddy was a man of very little words. And when he spoke, maybe 4 or 5 words, it had an impact. Believe it or not, Daddy never said to any of us, politics is for you. You do this or you go there. He wanted us all to have a regular, normal life. All go to school, find something that you enjoy to do it, then have your life. If you get married, you get married, have children. But he wanted us to function outside in the regular world without him, and he didn't have to worry about us. That being said, me doing this, I don't know if there was any one thing that he said to me to lead me down this road as much as him, the person, who he was, what I know him to be, and I know of him. And I think that more than anything, and how he treated people, how they responded to him, I think that more affected me or has taken root inside of me somewhere that has led me down this path.
I've got to ask, what is it that motivated you or is motivating you to offer yourself for a candidate? This is, you're looking at now 21 years this year, I think, since he's passed. It's been a while, but, you are now at this stage offering yourself for political office. What was the motivating factor?
That's another one. I don't know how to answer. I don't know. I never saw myself doing this. I never in a million years, if you had asked me this a year ago or 2 years ago, Monique, you're going to be in politics, I would have told you are out of your hot-bitten mind. Never. But I think, I don't know, it just, the path, it just happened. I was going to Andros. I was doing some stuff down there with the library. Going to check on Daddy's cottage and Mummy's mother's home, and going down as often as I was, and seeing old familiar faces and talking to them. The concerns of the people of South Andros were overwhelming. And as I sat with them constantly and chatted, and many conversations later, they just kept saying, please, would you consider it? We need help. And I know this is going to sound corny, but I went to the same beach that we used to walk and swim on at Las Palmas, the new Emerald Palms, it was the old Las Palmas. And I sat there and I said, how could I not? How could I not help these people that afforded my dad the legacy that he has today? Andros was loyal to him and still is to this day. And somehow the seed took root, and here we are today.
I'm sure people have said this to you or it's come up, but why should Bahamians give another Pindling a shot in government? Some will say, your dad would have had an exceptional career, would have been in politics for what is a lifetime these days. But why should the people of South Andros, which is where he represented for a very long time, but Bahamians in general, give a Pindling another shot?
Well, let me ask you something. Why not? Am I not Bahamian? Aren't I a citizen of this country? And yes, he was my dad, and yes, he had his own vision and his own plan, but don't I have a voice? Don't I have a say? I am a voting Bahamian. I vote just like everybody else. I have concerns just like everybody else. I raised two daughters and they have concerns. And I have a vision or an idea or a plan or a thought of what I want for them when they get older. So the question to you is, why not? Another thing I can ask you is, would you ask, why don't you ask other families? We have other political families in the arena. Simonettes, Turnquests, Butlers, folks, Maynard Hannah. No one ever asked that question to them. So why ask me? Why am I different from them? Why are the rules different from me than anybody else?
You think they are different for you because you are a Pindling?
Well, you asked the question. You said Bahamians want to know why you should give a Pindling another shot. Everybody is asking this question to me, but no, you're not asking the question to others. Brent Simonette's father, Sir Roland, was the premier of the Bahamas. He has been in politics now for a while, but he's not asked the same question. Is he trying to create a legacy or a dynasty with his family name? Why is there a different standard for Pindlings and not for anybody else? That is my question to you. So I'm sorry that I asked.
No. I'm happy that you answered that way, and that's why I asked you that question. That's a good place for us to take a break. Not that I don't want to continue that discussion, but for time reasons, we've got to take a break. If you're enjoying this discussion, folks, stay with us. We're going to talk about more political aspirations and also what we can expect if she's chosen. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this quick break. So the project really pays itself.
Correct.
They set up
At the conference, the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV. This is On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. A political legacy is what we're discussing tonight. This segment is brought to you by our friends at Executive Printers. I'm joined tonight by a member of the very first family of the Bahamas in many ways. She's the daughter of former Prime Minister, the late Sir Lyndon Pindling, and former Governor General, Dame Marguerite Pindling. My guest tonight, Monique Pindling. When we ended on such a high note, we're going to continue on that same vein. But you know, there's a process to get to Parliament. You obviously have to have an interest. Something has to, come to you. As you said, you in South Andros, the people approached you about wanting help. You are prepared to answer that call. You've got to seek the nomination. That's got to happen. You've got to run. Should you win the seat, as a member of Parliament, should you win, should your party win, then you come in as a member of a government. Should you win, your party not win, you're in opposition. But either way, you're in Parliament. What is Monique Pindling going to bring to Parliament now as a single mother and even a divorcee? What you are bringing to Parliament or could bring to Parliament are things that ordinary people face in their lives every day. What are you going to bring or could potentially bring to the Parliament of the Bahamas?
Wow, Jerome, you jumped the gun completely.
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
We weren't even going through the process. You get me.
Well, we can get to the process, but
I like how you ended. I mean, with a single mother and a divorcee. I don't know if that's almost like sexist or anything like that.
I hope not. That's not how it was presented. I just know that what you face is the realities that other women out there face every day.
Yes, and to tell you the truth, that is another reason why I decided to take this on, because yes, I am a single mother and I have two kids, two daughters, and I'm divorced. But to answer your question the way you posed it is that I hope not. I hope that being single with children and divorce isn't going to prevent me from getting into parliament, isn't going to be a hindrance where people look down on that. I hope we become progressive enough in our thinking that we are able to embrace everybody. That being said, when you look around the world today, I mean, look at Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados. She's a single, an unmarried woman. Jacinda Ardern, who's just my favorite, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. She is unmarried, lives with her partner, was pregnant while she was campaigning, and when she won her party won and she became prime minister, she gave birth in office. So as a single woman, unmarried with children, you can do all. We wear many hats. And I think women's, be it single, married, or divorced, or whatever, we're underrated and we're overlooked and we're oftentimes neglected. We are the backbone of this country. We come through all the time since the vote. We got the right to vote in 1962. We are the backbone. We are the strength. But we always seem to be in the background. And it's time now, as a mother of two girls, millennials and Generation Zer, it is time the women stand up. It's time for us to speak our own story. It's time for us, if we want to fight for something, we can't allow you men to tell you can't tell my story better than me. So it's time for us to tell that story.
I've got to ask, and what you said was so poignant. We seem to be still so very chauvinistic in many ways in this country, particularly when it comes to politics. You mention women in leadership sometimes, and some men go into friends. Even women sometimes will tell you, the Bible has ordained man to be leader and a woman should follow. Why do we continue to miss the mark? You talk about Barbados. We love Mia Mottley. I see people raving about her all the time on social media. Oh, we love her, great prime minister. But the minute you mention Bahamian woman prime minister, oh, no, die fast. What's the problem?
That's still a question mark for me. I'm not quite sure. But I think what I believe, or it could be, is the narrative that is out there. It's constantly out there. And, I guess that's why I'm speaking to you today, Jerome, because I want to change the narrative. I want to have a different conversation. And if we start it, then maybe we can get to that point. Speaking of Mia, it's so funny. Sorry about the noise. Mia and my sister Michelle went to school together, law school together. And Mia was always like that. She said in law school that she was going to be prime minister. So, to see her, I knew that she was going to fulfill her dream and her passion. But for us, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I have to ask you, you mentioned your sister, and I meant to ask this really a lot earlier, but what's your family support like? What kind of backing? I mean, you all have been in politics. The family's been all of your life and even beyond, as recently as your mother being... and while being Governor General is not a political office per se, it brought a lot of sort of, she's in the public eye and in the limelight for many years as Governor General. I'm so very curious as to what the family view and support is for your bid now to enter politics.
Obi thought I was out of my cotton picking mind. If anybody knows Obi, everybody would know that Obi hates politics. He's very good at it, that being, all of us, you couldn't have lived with Lyndon Pindling and not have some kind of inkling, some kind of something for politics. So that's why when you hear the noise in the market, it's really odd. And yes, I understand that people are looking at me and saying, oh, wait, where did she come from? How come all of a sudden? But you couldn't be in that kind of environment and not have some kind of something for it. That being said, Obi hates the nastiness. Obi hates all of the negative stuff. Michelle is the same way. But at the end of it, they look at me and they say, girl, you're crazy, but we love you and we support you and we will stand by you 100% of the way.
I noticed you didn't mention Leslie.
Well, Leslie is my mini me, even though he's older. And so, whatever, we have been thick as thieves from day one that I could remember. So, yeah, he's my spar, and, he's been behind me throughout from day one.
You spent many years as the wife of a cabinet minister. What was there any experience that you took from that that you think will aid you in your bid?
That's another kind of funny question, Jerome. Very
That's what
male.
we do here. We ask questions. We ask the, you call them funny. We ask the questions that these are. I always tell my guests I ask the questions that I think ordinary Bahamians want to know about.
But you, oh, you got me to stumble over because I needed to change direction. Does it matter that my ex-husband was a cabinet minister, or would you ask it if I was, the wife of an accountant or a plumber or something like that? Does it
The
really
reason I
matter?
asked, and let me explain. The reason I asked is when you're close to politics, you see things. You have different experiences that could possibly influence you in the future. And I guess that's the point that I was trying to make in the question. Were there things that you saw or you experienced that you think will add to this experience for you, or would have taught you something? You say, you know what, I will or will not go down that road, or I may do something differently, or I may do this because I saw that this worked and this did not work. But let's be, when you're the wife, you're on the campaign trail, you're going to events, you're doing all these things, it's a little different for you. It's not like for the rest of us who look from the outside.
Yes, you're right. And I guess for me, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I didn't see anything. To me, it was the same old, same old. To me, it was the same thing. I had expressed my opinions. I expressed that, we're at a different time. We're in a different Bahamas. Let's do something different. Let's add something different. And so I said what I told him my opinions, but everybody has their own agenda. Everybody has their own opinion, their own mind, and everybody makes their own decisions for themselves. So, I put it like this. I have in my mind what I would like to see and how I would like to assist and help and participate. And I'm going to use my experiences, my past experiences, living with my father and seeing my ex-husband's journey. I'm going to use that and take that for myself.
What would you say to Bahamian women? And you spoke about even your daughters being millennials and Gen Z. The Bahamian women out there face very different issues than men. What do you say to those Bahamian women out there who, as we discussed previously, who feel that they still don't have that place of prominence in the Bahamas today, that the opportunities, while there for advancement, may not be the same in some instances for them to get that seat as the head of this, or to advance the way that men, or even receive some of the things that men receive? What do you say to those women who are looking at you tonight, looking at this interview and wondering for themselves, is there a seat for me in this Bahamas still?
Yes, there is. That's also another issue for me. It is time. That's why I'm stepping out and I'm speaking up. It is time for us to claim our spot and take our seat at the table. No offense to the men in this country, you've done a wonderful job, but we live in a boys' club society, and it has hindered us, it has stopped us, it has prevented us from reaching to the levels and the just fairness, equality. It has stopped us, and it's time for that as we progress, as we move forward. And we need to be progressive in our thinking. We need to be progressive in our decision making. And it's the 21st century. We need to step into it. And if you look around the world, many women are entering into politics just for that same reason, just for fairness and equality. We have to change. Just a seat at the table, pay equality in the corporate world for women, just domestic violence. I mean, just security for them, our children. We need some kind of safety for them. Just a say in how we get treated, just across the board. As simple as child support. We have single mothers, which you referred to earlier in an earlier question. Single mothers out there are living day to day without any support from the children's father. And nothing happens. And then we wonder why they're on the line trying to get food, or children are walking around with clothes. Anywhere else in the world, this is unacceptable. But in this country, we know it exists. We know the many problems that exist, but we refuse to address it. Let's start addressing it. That's why I'm here.
You always take me right to that point where I need to take that break. And that's a good place for us to break. When we come back, folks, we're going to continue discussing the climate of politics in our nation. Stay with us. This is On the Record, Season 5, our first show. What a way to start the year. Stay with us. Project really pays itself.
Correct.
They set up
At the conference, the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV. Welcome back. You're watching On the Record. This is our season opener for Season 5. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Tonight, we're discussing a political legacy of sorts. My guest tonight is Ms. Monique Pindling. Welcome back. Monique, do you think Bahamians are tired of two-party governance between the PLP and the FNM?
And a simple answer, yes, they are. But I, of course, have an opinion on that, like I have an opinion on everything else. They are because time after time, election after election, they vote for a candidate or they vote for a party and promises are made and they are not fulfilled. Everything that was said or was told to the voter, nothing happens. So I could see how voters, Bahamians, would be tired of that. However, I feel that, in reading and hearing, everybody would then come up and say that call PLP one thing and call the FNM one thing. And I just want to remind people, or just look at it in a different perspective, or take a different perspective, is that the FNM and the PLP are brands. They're institutions. They have philosophies of their own. They stand for something. They mean something. It's the individuals that go into these institutions with whatever agenda in their head. They decide the course that that institution is going to take. And then with the different personalities that you get, it changes the brand. So you can't blame the FNM. You can't the brand FNM. You can't blame the brand PLP, because it just takes on the personalities of the leaders, people that's in its party. Let me give you a perfect example of what I mean. Let's take our neighbor to the west, the Republican Party. Republican Party, long-standing party. The present president has changed the entire dynamic of the Republican Party. Does that mean that the Republican Party is at fault for anything? Is the Republican Party different than what it was 10 years ago when the founding fathers, George Washington, those created the Declaration of Independence? No, it's the individual. So if you want to change anything, change the individual. Don't badmouth the party itself or the brand. And another thing I think too is for parties which kind of cause this undercurrent of distrust is that people switch. They go from party to party. There's no loyalty. If you believe in a philosophy, if you believe in something, stick with it. Speak out, criticize, nurture it, grow with it until you get the thing, the person, the candidate, the party that you want. But this switching back and forth because, well, that one didn't give me that and that one didn't give me that, that is what's created this mess that we had. It's blurred the lines.
Well, I was going to ask you this a little later, but because you opened that Pandora's box, I have to ask this in particular. Had it not been for the legacy your father left, your involvement, your close involvement, your close ties with the PLP, do you think you would have still chosen the PLP?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Why?
That's exactly goes back to my answer just now. Just because people might not like the individuals in the party, or that doesn't mean that I'm still not a PLP. I believe in the philosophy of the PLP. And the philosophy is that we are a country, the majority is 80% Black. We are a Black nation. I have been fortunate in my lifetime. I still hustling today, trying to make ends meet and get my children and educate my children, but that's beside the point. There is another mother out there who is struggling. That concerns me. There is another single mother out there going through 10 times harder things than me. That concerns me. There is enough in this country for everybody. We just got to find a way to share it. And that's what the PLP means to me.
Many people, you brought up a very good point, and that is struggle. We as a country are facing a lot of challenges. Many of them have come within the last year or so. People seem to be losing hope in what they say. Sometimes I think even in their actions, you just see, it appears to me that sometimes we're just in despair. When you hear that, when you see that, what do you say to Bahamians who have just given up hope or have lost faith in the Bahamas?
Well, that's two different things for me, because if you have faith, you believe in the word of God and what he tells you. So your faith doesn't come from man. It doesn't come from Dorian. It doesn't come from the pandemic. It comes from the Lord. If you read the word in the Bible, it comes from him. And if he is in you, then you will have faith and you will have hope, because he tells you, or he shows us in the time of adversity, in difficulty right now, we should all have hope. We should still hang on to the little bit of something that gives us hope to know that we will get through tomorrow. Now, that being said, some of us have lost a little bit of that spiritual connection, so we have lost hope. And then on top of that, our leaders across the board, be it political, be it spiritual, be it educational, just community level, we are not our brother's keepers anymore. No one looks out for anybody anymore. No one fights for anybody anymore. Everything is a gimme kind of situation. So if there is someone out there struggling and she can't get anywhere or get any help, yes, I could see that. I could see how hanging on to hope and finding hope is difficult. So what that means is that we need people now change narrative again. Stop talking about me as if I'm a bad person. Stop talking about your neighbor as if they're a bad person. Let's speak positive. Let's speak hope. Let's speak love. And then you'll begin to see things change. But if we continue with this negative slash, and I mean, just the other day, someone sent out a meme or a flyer about me. I'm greedy. I want a dynasty. I wanted this. I know who did that, but what good is that going to do to the people out there who are struggling and who need hope and who need help?
What does the Bahamas today look like versus the Bahamas that your late father led?
Very different. Very different. Going back to that last question you just asked, you should know because, well, I'm over 50. You're over 40. I know.
Close to 50. I closer to 50 than 40.
Back then, growing up, the Bahamas, we loved one another. We were happy growing up. You know, I just asked Michelle those the other day, and growing up, we lived in Soldier Road. And to the right of us was, to the left of us was Percy Munnings. Then you had the Johnsons. Then you had the Stubbs further down there. And Michelle said everybody in Regency Park used to get together, and our front yard used to be the Rounders playground. It was a community. We loved one another. We didn't fight. We didn't tear each other down. That's one part. Another thing too is this is a different Bahamas today than it is. Why? Because there's a new generation out there. A new generation has emerged. My dad talked about this generation 40 years ago, 30 years ago, that this generation was coming, and we're not ready to embrace this generation. We still are stuck. We still want to do it our old way. And these kids are here. And if we do not embrace them and bring them into the fold, we are going to lose every last one of them because they're all moving Canada to the United States. They're looking for a place to belong.
How do we, you hit the nail right on the head. I say it all the time. But how do we break that cycle? How do we make continue to make our country or make our country attractive again to our young people? Because you're right, I can name about 5, young people without even batting an eye who are either in the process of moving or have moved or said to me, hey, when I'm done with school, I'm just not coming back. How do we break that cycle? How do we change that? I mean, what do we do?
Well, this is a good start. I mean, you and I are having a conversation. I am going against, not quite going against the establishment, but I'm speaking out. And not to say that I'm not PLP, but I'm a Bahamian, and I'm just speaking out to the things that we need to address. Changing the narrative across the board, like I keep saying, is the key. To the young people out there, I mean, you could understand it and I can understand it. It's getting the boys club, the older generation to understand the younger generation. I live with 2, so I hear it constantly, not either from them or from their friends. The things that my generation, which I'm a Generation X, or my mother's generation, or the generation that's running the whole Bahamas and the country and that has us on lock, they don't want to hear their concerns because they think, oh my God, we either they're disrespectful or they're rude, and on top of that, they don't understand. Like, for example, so I don't ramble, is that their music is different from mummy's music. Their music is different from my music. My daughter, Grace, 15 years old, we're having family lunch and we're having this same conversation. And the question came up from the older siblings, family members, but your generation is always on social media and so disrespectful. And Grace's response is, well, what else am I supposed to do? Just because you all grew up with marbles and chopper bicycles and hopscotch, that don't mean that I'm supposed to. This is all I know. This is my world. So if this is my world, then why don't you meet me halfway? And that's the problem.
I've never heard it put so poignant. And I'm one of those who say to y'all always in this phone. But, maybe my nephew should have said that to me. But, how do you I want to take that now and play it forward a bit to our family islands. Because, we've talked about the young people. You're looking now to represent a family island community. In many ways, South Andros is one of those rural communities when you even compare it to some of the other family island communities. As we have left behind our young people, we have left behind our family islands.
Completely. This is the key factor, pretty much the major factor why I decided to do this. It's because Andros continuously gets left behind. Continuously. Sometimes I think it's on purpose, but that's another day for another conversation.
That's another show.
It gets left behind. This is, let me ask you this. If we didn't have this conversation, if I wasn't on your show today, if I didn't get up and say that Monique Pindling wants to run or be considered for the seat of Andros, would anybody be talking about Andros?
Probably at some point, but not in this context. No, yeah, and you're right. Well, at some point, because we're entering the election season, I'm a big Family Island person, so I always speak about Family Islands in the broad context. But Andros, probably no.
Yes. So, kudos to me, right?
Oh,
we
definitely.
Get Andros on the table. We get Andros on the map. Family Islands, listen to me. I was just telling somebody the other day, 40 years ago this year, 40 years ago, 1981, my dad said that the capital of the Bahamas could be in Andros. The financial capital could be New Providence. The industrial capital could be Grand Bahama. There was landmass far as the eye can see. Duluth, Exuma could be the hub for the southeastern end of the island. Eleuthera is a gem which all can add extra money, GDP, increase the GDP of this country. But they're sitting there waiting. Look at Exuma. It's been sitting there waiting. And I know, Exuma is my favorite. It is by far one of the most beautiful chain of islands we have. It's sitting there. Look what has brought us back into the fold. Pigs, for goodness sake. Good. Everybody wants to come see swimming pigs.
Good point. Mike, we've got a final segment to I like it. You always take me right to that point. We've got a final segment to go to. Our audience, don't go anywhere. We're going to bring it home in our final segment right after this quick break. The project really pays itself.
Correct.
They set up
at the conference, the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
Watching On the Record. Thank you for staying with us for our final segment. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We're talking about a political legacy. Monique Pindling is my guest. Monique, the PLP won the government in 1967, remained in office until 1992, was defeated by the FNM, which then won a consecutive term in 1997. We have not seen that since. As I said, PLP would have remained in from 67 to 1992 with your late father as Prime Minister. I want you to, if you can, help us, or what you think would have endeared the Bahamian people to the PLP and then Prime Minister Pindling for so long. We don't seem to be able to have consecutive governments anymore. What do you think was different that would have endeared the people and allowed your father to remain as Prime Minister for so long?
Boy, you're really doing me in here on this one, Jerome. I'll go back to something I said to you earlier, why you asked me if there was anything that he would have said to me. I think Daddy's success, or I believe Daddy's success, was that he endeared himself to people. They connected with him. They really, truly loved him. When he said he was going to do something, he did it. When he said, come to my office, 7 o'clock, he was there. When you got to the office, 7 o'clock, you were in the office. Now, you might not stay long because he wasn't a long talker, but he would see you. When he campaigned, you see, that's why I said you have to believe in the philosophy. At that time, the PLP was a feeling. Back then, you would go out, it was a feeling, and it caught you in your heart, in your gut. People loved one another. They embraced it in each other. And don't forget, in the beginning, in 67 now, they were fighting for one people, one voice, fighting for one cause. So collectively, they were together. They were unified because they knew what their mission was. They had a fire in their belly. They had passion. And so they knew what their end goal was. They knew, they could see it. It wasn't clear, but they could see it. And as each year got closer and 67 was there, Daddy was able, and the PLP, Clarence Bain, Milo Bittler, they described it and they put it out there that the average person could see that vision. And then they felt it because it came from the heart. And that is what I believe the success of my dad.
Do you think that the Bahamian people can no longer see these visions or these goals? Do you think we sort of don't know where we're going?
You could say that, but in order to get to that point, whoever's telling you that and seeing and trying to show you that vision, you need to have a connection with that person. You in order to have an idea is one thing, but you have to be able to sell the idea. And to sell the idea, you have to be another key thing about Daddy too, you have to be a humble person. You really need to be humble, and so that you could reach to that person's level. You can speak their language. And that's when they feel you. And when they feel you and they connect with you, they can see it as clear as day. And that's how I think.
We're going to talk a little bit now about where you are in your nomination process. What's happening? I know you said you have this interest. Some people have asked you. You have this burning desire. You say it's something you could not walk away from. What's the status of your nomination right now? How's that going?
I mean, you had me running in government, in parliament, being an MP, having vision and plan, and now we go.
We want to know where you are.
Well, you know what? I actually now, when I answer this, it'll probably show to you that it's a good thing because I'm not going to get the nomination. I never really thought that I would, but at least I got to do this. I mean, I woke up, everything, I kind of stirred all of the dead bones, and I kind of made a few people angry. But guess what? I got to, spark some interest. You said, come on your show. I get to talk about things that I think we need to talk about as a country, a nation, and a people. Andros, I hope now can stand up and fight for what they want. It's on the map, and all of the other islands, family islands, Eleuthera, Exuma, Ragged Island. I know y'all still waiting on them solar panels. I know, all of the other islands. It's time for them to get a piece of the pie.
So we want to confirm you did not get the nomination. What's next?
I didn't say that. I don't think I'm going to get it. I don't think I'm going to get it. So your next question is, what's next?
If you don't get it, then what's next?
I hope to go down there and see if I can still make a difference. If I can still get an economy to develop down there, diversification. If I can use connections across the world and invite people to come in and let's get things started. Let's start renewable energy, solar fields down there. We can expand the bone fishing industry. We need docks. We need marinas because, between Mangrove Key and Fresh Creek or Central Andros, they have a large bone fishing industry. We just haven't tapped into it. I have friends in South Andros who bought the old Las Palmas. They're looking to do phase 2. They expand, that could increase the economy down in South Andros. I want to get a ferry system going so that you don't have to keep coming to Nassau to go to Fresh Creek. You could just go from Fresh Creek to Mangrove Creek South and up and down. So anybody that's interested, anybody that hears me, if you got ideas, if you want to join in, if we could just fight and try to get it together, we need to do a plan and just expand the townships, create the economy down there. If you're willing to join me and we could do it, let's try it.
Now, the journalist in me will not allow the show to end for me to ask, why do you think you won't get the nomination? I mean, you've laid out a great platform for us. You've spoken with people down there. You come from a great legacy. You have the backing, it would seem. Why do you think that you would not get the nomination?
Well, I don't know really. I think they want to, and fairly so. They want to stay with the incumbent, and give him a try, and rightly so. It's their call. It's their choice. But at the end of the day, I will assist. I'm a team player. I will try and do the best that I can to work with everybody.
Should the opportunity present itself in the future, would we see you on a ticket?
Never know. Maybe not.
What about outside of Andros? I mean, I know where your heart is. I don't know if your mother would allow you to look at anywhere else, but would there be a possibility of you running for a seat outside of Andros if the opportunity presented itself?
Oh, I never really thought about that, Jerome. I think,
Isn't this a great show? We get to put all kinds of ideas in your head, but seriously, it's a serious. Would you consider running elsewhere?
Actually, when I started this process and I went in, everybody kept saying, "But why Andros? Why not take something else?" I don't have a connection to anything anywhere else. My formative years, from since I was 5 years old, I was in Andros, so I never really thought of anything. Now you raise the question, would I consider? Yes, of course, I would consider anything, but my heart is, because I too believe that the future of this country, I really, really believe that the future of this country starts with Andros, and then it works its way to the other islands.
That's an excellent point for us to wrap up, because I think so often, and I call Nasuvians selfish all the time because we think the entire Bahamas revolves around us. But I think, that's such a very poignant point that I think there's so many missed opportunities in our family islands, and what they present for us, and what they can mean for the future of this country. Because let's be honest, we have tapped New Providence out.
Oh, yes, for real. That's why I sent out that plea just now. If we have some really bright minds in this country that have been neglected, if I can use all of them. If architects, if you're ready, let's lay out a plan. Let's draw a plan. Let's draw a township. I think the conversation just needs to be had. The narrative needs to be changed, and give a possible alternative to what is the usual and what is the norm. I think once that is done, and we've done it, I think here today, I think anything is possible.
Monique, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been a fantastic conversation. I could not have started the year off any better. Thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. You've given us a lot of insight. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of calls to say, hey, if it's not South Andros, you better start looking somewhere else. So who knows? Maybe I'll have you back on in a few months to talk about, your candidacy somewhere else. But thank you very much. All the best to my favorite dame. Tell your mother I said hi.
You.
I have a special place in my heart for her. She knows that. Thank you so much. That's going to do it for our first show, Season 5. We're off and running on the record. Tonight we talked to a political legacy. Thank you so much to my guest, Monique Pindling, for joining us, to my technical team, and of course to you, our viewers. Now that we're back, we'll see you again next week. Same time, same place, right here on the record.